There is this particular experience every kid has gone through at one point of childhood, that being getting lost at the supermarket. There is something absolutely terrifying about not finding your mom or dad in such a place, and at that particular moment, you can't help but to get extremely nervous and even shed a little tear. The thought of not having someone taking care of us made us feel abandoned and unsafe. This is particularly funny considering how little kids like to make their age extremely clear, and most of them have a will of becoming adults, daydreaming about their future jobs, houses, or even families. However, what would happen if young children were stranded in a desert island? We are in the middle of a nuclear war. In an attempt of evacuating children, a plane full of schoolboys gets hit, leaving all of them stranded in a desert island and, unfortunately, killing the pilot, the only adult taking care of those children. We are firstly introduced to Ralph, a fair boy who seems thoughtful and has pretty clear ideas, and Piggy, a fat boy that wears glasses who at the beginning of the novel can seem pretty inconvenient but becomes of great importance later on. Ralph and Piggy find the conch, and Piggy explained that those could be used to make sounds, so Ralph blows it in hopes of finding the rest of the boys. Immediately after, all of the children gather around, from the youngest to the choir kids. From all of these children, mainly referred as little ones due to their short age, it is important to introduce a few of them. Firstly, Jack, the complete opposite from Ralph, a rebellious kid who just wants to rule. Then we have Simon, a kind and well-behaved boy. Next are Sam and Eric, twins that do everything together to an extent where they end up being referred to as if they were just one. And lastly, Roger, a quiet boy that seems trivial but will eventually have a huge part in the story. Now, going back to the assembly. Ralph gets chosen chief over Jack, mainly because he was holding the conch, and they set some rules and tasks to do. The main rule is that only the boy that is holding the conch has the right to speak during assemblies. Jack takes the role as lead hunter, taking the choir boys with him in hopes of hunting a pig. However, Ralph has two things clear. Firstly, they ought to make a signal fire in hopes of being rescued by a ship. And then they have to build huts so that later on they can use them as shelters. So they build a fire on top of the mountains, an easy task thanks to Piggy's glasses, and Ralph leaves hunters in charge of it. They are responsible of collecting wood and keeping the fire lit. However, and for Ralph's misfortune, things start going downhill pretty quickly. They almost burn down the whole island due to issues regarding the fire, and from then, problems will start escalating. Will Ralph be able to keep things in order in a democratic way, or will Jack's plans get in between? How will a group of children behave as an adult-free society? Is man really wolf to man? As far as vocabulary goes, it was quite easy in comparison to other books I've read in English. However, when it comes to the story progression is when things start getting actually complicated. For instance, a great amount of the story is written via conversations. During this, there aren't any notes on who is speaking, and taking into account that scenes are usually developed between at least three main characters, it was rather hard to differentiate who said what. Along with it, it also felt that between chapters there were time gaps that didn't actually affect the understanding of the story, but until I was fully aware of them, I did get a little bit puzzled when it came to following the storyline. Moreover, it is a book that has a lot of philosophy behind, and it wasn't until I did some research on the background and meaning of the story that I was able to fully understand it. While looking into the book, I found out that William Golding, the writer, actually went through the two world wars, which helped me realize why he took such a strong stance towards the good and the bad in people. Because he exclusively believed that the human being is naturally evil, he did write certain things that I personally thought weren't really coherent regarding my personal point of view. I think that to make his point clear, he took things way over to an extreme, where there's some things that don't really make sense anymore. However, I did like the fact that he tried to explain society and how we, as flawed beings, can drift apart from a fair democratic system that seems to take everyone into account, developing a savage and almost dictatorial system where freedom is definitely confused with debauchery. That is why I thought the symbology behind the conch and everything it represents throughout the story is brilliant. Another thing I didn't like is the fact that the story had only male characters. When asked to address this, the author explained that it was to suppress the triviality of sex, whatever that means. However, women have different ways of thinking that men do, especially at such young age, and I think that introducing female approaches to the situations in the novel would have made the story much more interesting. Overall, I personally didn't really like the book. I found it really hard to follow and to understand. Nevertheless, I would recommend it to those people that like books that have more to them than just the actual story, like, for example, a strong background context. Yet, I do think that when reading it, people should think of it more of a philosophical essay than of an actual story.
Menos hacerlo tú más tarde.
Hola.
Tú más tarde.
Se ven aquí esa mierda.